Even before the US economy nearly collapsed in 2008, data from the National Comorbidity Survey told us that an astonishing 50% of Americans report having suffered at some point in their lives from a psychiatric disorder, most commonly depression, alcohol dependency, social phobia, or simple phobia. Even more startling, research shows that Americans have only a 35% chance of rating themselves very happy by the time they reach the late 80s. Given that the same research showed happiness tends to increase with age, it would seem that most of us are destined to live the majority of our lives without much joy.
64,000 is the median number of words per book. Average person reads about 200 words per minute. Simple math will tell us that is one book in 320 minutes. To accomplish this in 7 days, numbers say you would have to read for 45 minutes a day. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button, like, comment, and share. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Book of the Week series. Every week as I read another amazing title, I share it with the world. My name is Igor S.F. Walker, and today we look at the Undefeated Mind, on the science of constructing an indestructible self by Dr. Alex Lickerman. So how about you slow down and relax? Reduce all that noise for just a bit. Make that choice and decide to listen. In this video, we are reminded that our ability to control what happens to us in life may be limited, but we have the ability to establish a life state to surmount the suffering life brings us. We look at how to springboard from adversity to strength. So stick around till the end. I will share with you some tools I do have and use that will help you tremendously in this game of life. Discover a way to find out what actually motivates you, what innate human need is driving all of your decisions and your behavior. I will share some tools to improve your self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship management. Though absolute control over our response to adversity may elude us, influence over it need not. If we cannot change our emotional reactions by force of will, we can at least increase the likelihood that our reactions are constructed by cultivating something psychologists called personality hardiness. The capacity to survive and even thrive under difficult conditions. Lives filled with misfortune frequently add up only to lives filled with suffering. To build strength out of adversity, we need a catalyst. That catalyst is wisdom. Inner strength does not come from the experience of adversity itself, but from the wisdom that the adversity has the potential to impart. The development of strength through acquisition of wisdom, a process in terms human revolution. Subjective experiences can be scientifically investigated even when the investigator is investigating him or herself. When patients tell me, for example, that eating pizza predictively causes them abdominal pain, the fact that only they can observe the dependent variable, abdominal pain, in no way invalidates the conclusion that the independent variable, pizza, is the cause. How quickly we pronounce final judgment on the things that happen to us, deciding whether they're good or bad in the first moment they do occur, not realizing how in doing so we surrender our own agency, abandoning the belief that we have the power to create meaning out of what happens to us. I always believed we do have that power, and even encouraged others going through their own struggles to believe it, but hadn't really known it was true myself until my own failure proved it to me. We are, all of us, meaning-seeking creatures. We may begin life as pleasure seekers and pain avoiders, but as our brain develops and language begins flowing from our mouths, we soon begin demanding to know the why of things. As any parent can attest who has been subjected to inexhaustible energy children do have for asking why the sun shines, or why is the sky blue? If happiness is indeed our primary function, why is it so difficult to achieve? Perhaps for at least two reasons. Because merely desiring happiness, more than anything else, doesn't itself teach us how to achieve it. And as we are all capable of believing things without evidence, many of our beliefs about what makes us happy will simply turn out to be wrong. Further, too much pleasure can be paradoxically unpleasant. If a few jelly beans are delicious, but too many make us sick. Something happiness, by definition, can never be. Now, to the second reason happiness is difficult to achieve, it requires not only the presence of joy, meaning a positive emotional state, but also the absence of suffering. The suffering of birth is taken to mean the suffering that arises simply as a result of our having been born, that is, of having desires that go unfulfilled, encountering people and experiences we do not like, and being separated from people and experiences we do like. The suffering of old age refers to the suffering we do experience as a result of loss of our mental and physical vitality. The suffering of sickness is obviously that which we experience as a result of illness, and the suffering of death arises from our awareness that we will one day die. Now, taken together, these four sufferings are said to encompass every kind of suffering human beings experience. We do not suffer, according to Nietzschean Buddhism, because we face obstacles. We suffer because we face obstacles we do not believe we can overcome. Even the state of continuous suffering, clinical depression, is considered to result from our being overwhelmed by a feeling of powerlessness. Studies actually show that when most of us experience a significant loss, the death of a spouse or a parent or a loved one, for example, we suffer for a while, but then typically recover. Becoming frozen in grief or outright depression following such an event turns out to be surprisingly rare. But just knowing that we are most likely destined to recover in the end does not automatically mitigate the suffering such traumas cause while we are going through them. A collection of statistics representing the largest and the longest standing series of observations on happiness in the world. The trait most strongly associated with increases in life satisfaction is, in fact, a persistent, commitment to pursuing altruistic goals. What's more, according to another study, altruism doesn't just correlate with an increase in happiness, it actually causes it, at least in the short term. Now, if our self-esteem determines the value we assign to ourselves, that is how much we like ourselves, self-esteem. Our sense of purpose determines the value we assign to our lives. That is how significant or important we find our lives to be. And while a healthy self-esteem is well known to be necessary for happiness, increasing it beyond what's considered healthy hasn't been correlated with further increases in happiness. Perhaps because any level of self-love beyond healthy strays, almost by definition, into the realm of narcissism. Now, strategies often fail. Companies go bankrupt. Sculptures sit unsold. Teachers lose their jobs. A mission, on the other hand, endures. No matter how devastated we may feel, when a strategy fails, no matter how much we may have loved doing it, if underneath that love also lies a commitment to the mission, our strategy is served, we will eventually be able to pick up ourselves, dust ourselves off, and then find another strategy that we will love just as much. Not that recovering from the loss of a strategy to which we are attached is easy. To accomplish a great goal, then, we have to begin with a great determination. But a great determination requires an equally great motivation. Without the will to use it, even the most powerful force in the world will accomplish nothing. See, because negative thoughts are tempting to believe in, we can use the same strategies to deal with them that we use to deal with temptations in general. Distraction and avoidance. Rather than expend energy resisting our negative thoughts, we can concentrate instead on ignoring them. Our ultimate aim being to treat them the way psychologists treat patients with panic attacks, to actually treat anxiety, which is to say, not by denying them, but by observing and accepting, waiting patiently until they do what unresisted thoughts generally will do: pass quietly away. You are as strong or not as you tell yourself. You may not want to go through this, imagining, as I'm sure you are, all the horrible things you might have to face if you do. But that does not mean that you cannot. Can't is just another story we tell ourselves. It is a decision we make. As a result, we almost suffer more from believing we cannot solve our problems than from actually having to do the work of solving them. One reason we often prefer to believe we cannot solve a problem is that it actually creates less anxiety than the alternative, not knowing if we will. Omission to do what is needed is related partly to the power of social proof, which causes people to assume that the actions of others around them reflect appropriate behavior, so that if everyone else is doing nothing, they presume doing nothing must be appropriate. In my view, the more approximate cause is a phenomenon known as the diffusion of responsibility. The reason no one had called 911 in an emergency situation, for example, isn't because the idea hadn't occurred to anyone, but rather because it had occurred to almost everyone, each of whom then in turn presumed that someone else had actually done it. The larger the group before which a task is placed, it turns out, the less each individual will feel personally responsible for accomplishing it, and the less likely, without an explicit assignment of responsibility, the task will be accomplished at all. Perhaps the most significant way in which embracing a sense of personal responsibility increases resilience is by motivating action. Remember, resilience is also defined by our ability to persevere through obstacles. In fact, feeling responsible for achieving an outcome may motivate us even more powerfully than our desire to achieve an outcome. After all, a sense of responsibility often makes us do things we do not want to do. When we take moral action, we seem to rely not so much on moral reasoning as on moral intuition, and then work backward to rationalize the judgments we have already made. Which isn't to say our moral intuition cannot and should not be influenced by reason, but rather that our moral intuition remains the primary driver of our moral decision making. Now, where does our moral intuition comes from? The answer isn't just yet clear. How can we ever know our action to prevent harm today will not cause more harm tomorrow? Or that our action to prevent harm here will not produce harm there? The answer, of course, is we cannot. Though the pain of a stubbed toe or a headache may seem like a single unified experience, it actually represents the sum of two different experiences created by two separate areas of the brain. One called the posterior insula, which registers the sensation of pain, its quality, intensity, and so on. And the other, the anterior cingulate cortex, which register pain's unpleasant character. We know this is how the brain experiences pain because of imaging studies and because of patients who have damage to the anterior cingulate cortex feel the sense of pain, but not its unpleasantness. That is, they feel the pain, but they aren't bothered by it. Interestingly, in some people, morphine has the same effect. When the anterior cingulate cortex is not functioning, pain is still experienced, but seems to lose its emotional impact and thus its motivating force. Different locations within the brain explain how a single pain stimulus can cause such subjectively different pain experiences. Now, believing ourselves to be strong increases our strength. Believing in our ability to handle pain can increase our pain tolerance. Knowing how much pain to expect also reduces anxiety, and studies have shown that the more levels of anxiety are associated with reduced pain, unpleasantness. In fact, it turns out that the more familiar we are with the painful task in general, meaning the more times we have experienced it, the less pain it seems to cause us. No wonder then that physical and emotional pain produce the same reaction, a strong desire to avoid the things that cause them. Approaching painful internal experiences with an attitude of acceptance. In contrast, accepting that sometimes we are weak, paradoxically, may be the key to our becoming strong. The inevitability of loss. From the moment we are born into this world, we face a troubling paradox. What makes life interesting and fun are the attachments we do form. But those same attachments become the cause of our worst pain in life when we lose them. Even when merely threatened by the loss of an attachment, whether a person or a thing, we often suffer horribly. How then can we achieve any kind of lasting happiness when so many important things to which we do become attached, including our own lives, will eventually be lost to us? Acceptance of the inevitability of loss. If experiencing gratitude makes us strong by making us feel good, then experiencing love, which contributes even more to life's satisfaction, should make us even stronger. Now, what's surprising about love's power to make us feel good, though, is that it has nothing to do with whether we get anything in return for it. Feeling love for a perfect stranger, it turns out, elevates our mood almost as much as it does feeling love for someone close to us. Research! And now shows what many of us know from experience to be true. Taking action to alleviate the suffering of others helps us better manage our own. We may think our advice represents the most valuable thing we have to offer those who suffer, but it pales in comparison to the power of our encouragement. Encouragement, at its heart, represents an attempt to make others feel that they do have the strength, that they do have the wisdom, courage, and the ability to solve their problems. It aims not to provide specific solutions, but to make others believe that they can find those solutions on their own. But encouraging others is difficult. For one thing, people themselves don't usually know what will encourage them. For another, we often don't even notice the statements we make. They do not notice these statements that we think they will help them the most. Even if we cannot produce a victory from failure, even if we do not grow personally as a result of adversity, we can always use our experience to encourage others, especially when others are facing obstacles similar to those we once ourselves faced and survived. Sometimes we only need to pull a lever a few degrees to move our lives in a radically different direction. On the other hand, sometimes, no matter how hard we pull, our lives do not seem to move at all. Some struggles, in fact, take years or even decades to win. But as long as we refuse to give in to despair and resolve to continue taking concrete action, some kind of a victory is always possible. Never be defeated. And there you have it, the undefeated mind. Please, do help out. It is easy. Simply like this video so more people can enjoy it. Share it too and spread the word. Do leave a comment and share your thoughts. Subscribe to my channel and stay up to date. And the link to this book is in the description below. So buy it, read, never stop learning, especially learning about yourself and nature. So gift yourself by taking the free human needs test on my website and find out what actually motivates you, what innate human need is driving all of your decisions and your behavior. And if you feel you are ready to improve your self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship management even further, do check out my Master of Life Awareness program. The links are in the description below. Thank you. Love and respect.